Welcome everyone to the number 62 podcast of the Tesla Beat. We have obviously a new special guest this week with AI generated joining us. Grok 2 has officially made videos now, so it's pretty awesome. We got Hans joining us from the rave, and we have Brian making lemonade out of lemons with his lemon tree. It grows every week.
Fresh from the orchard is what I'm here to do.
Exactly. You should see his backyard. It's a huge it's a huge orchard in Oregon. Well, awesome. There is every week there's always something new going on in the Twitter or X world, and more importantly, Grok now. Joe, tell us a little bit about this. How did you make this?
Oh, I drew this by hand. It took me time, persistence, and dedication. No, so Grok 2 is pretty amazing. Now I can draw images. So I made this bud biter superhero for the podcast.
It looks so good. You made a bunch of them, and they all look so good.
I know. I couldn't stop. I was like, uh-oh. You're muted.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. I was pulling Hans earlier, just going mute. So Tesla stock has rebounded a little bit by roughly, what is that, $22. So it's back up to around 217. Rebounded a little bit from last week after the random, massacre that happened on that Monday of last week. But it's back up. They're still down about 13% year to date. But overall has had a pretty massive recovery. All right. So, obviously we can keep some of the political things out of the conversation, but there were several big tidbits that were shared. Even I do think, Elon kind of course correcting Trump in a lot of things. But overall, what were your thoughts on the conversation? Was there anything that stuck out to you, whether it's your overall sentiment or other things that would be relevant for the pod?
So I was on a Spaces yesterday with Holmars and a few other people, and like you said, without getting too political, the general consensus. The general consensus was pretty overall positive in the fact that, well, my take was you're looking at a man who has companies and employees across the world who is just trying to play a 3D chess game that most we won't really realize until like it actually comes to pass. You know what I mean? Like with most things with Elon Musk, you just never know what he's doing, and you think he's out of the game until he does something. And again, trying not to get too political, but he's been vilified by one group of people, and so he just, where you thought he didn't have a chance, now he's turned and made this other group of people like him again, or not hate him so much. So, and it's pretty unfortunate, because I think for him and for all the people he employ and everything that he has done for the masses and for just the world overall, for him to be looked at by the political party that's currently in office as it is, it's really unfortunate, because he was really a proponent of that faction for a very long time, and then now he's just the bad guy, and it's really weird that happened to him. But kudos for him for like finding a way to make lemons into lemonade, like Brian. So I mean, I'm just really impressed that with the whole thing, with him being able to navigate all the murky waters that's happened, not even just politically, but with X and with his companies overall, like the whole Boeing thing with SpaceX. And I mean, just everything that's happened. And we're just like a little over halfway through the year. It's been insane. And he's just navigated it very well.
One thing I'll add here, sorry, is just that, this is part of Elon is just a bold guy, and this is a bold move, obviously. And I think that it's going to either work out very well or very poorly. Like it's going to be one or the other in the long term. If the, Harris Waltz campaign wins and she takes the presidency, then I think this is going to be a major headwind for Tesla and really all of Elon's companies, because obviously they weren't particularly friendly to him before. I know a lot of people will cite the EV tax credits and how those have been good for Tesla. But if you really dig into the legislation, the point of that legislation was really to offer a leg up to legacy automakers and give them a path forward to make the transition to EVs without going bankrupt. They are not really taking the opportunity, and they tried to cut Tesla out of that initially, especially for like the Model Y, which is obviously the largest selling vehicle for Tesla and the largest selling vehicle in the world. And it took a real grassroots movement of Tesla supporters in order to secure those tax credits for the Model Y. And so this was, definitely not the intention of the Biden administration to be supportive of Tesla in their efforts in EVs. So they want to say that EVs and climate are their primary, policy, and yet they want to undermine the person doing the most. And we've seen that. So, anyways, even though Elon wasn't necessarily the Biden administration's favorite, and there was some lawfare and some interesting things going on there, I think that the pushback against him has been muted compared to what it will be in the next administration, given Elon's now defection from the party and open hostility towards Kamala as a presidential candidate. So, if that happens, I think investors should just be aware of that. And then, on the flip side, if Trump is able to win, I don't think that it's going to be nearly as bad as a lot of people. A lot of people assume that Trump is against EVs and that's going to be bad for Tesla. I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. I think that it would be a much better outcome for Tesla, the company specifically, if Trump were to win the presidency. So, no comments either way on anything other than that. Just something for people to be aware of and think about.
So I would say that the big disappointment to me was there wasn't the discussion about the EV myths, the myths that candidate Trump has been saying do not match the rhetoric of President Trump. We're getting two different sets of dialogue from him, and I was hoping that when this was on Donald Trump's channel, and that means that Elon had an opportunity to speak to a bunch of people who may not have heard his message before, who may not know the reality of all the of EVs. And I was really hopeful that we would get it laid out for them, for this new audience. Trump did speak his politics to Elon's followers, but I don't think Elon's followers don't know Trump's politics. I don't think that was a big opportunity to share a message to a wider audience for President Trump. So I was very disappointed by that. Now I think I would disagree with Hans and say that I think Tesla is going to be just fine no matter who wins. I don't think it's going to matter all that much. We can say that that there's been hostility, but SpaceX has had record number of contracts from the government. Tesla's getting more subsidies, and their buyers are getting more credits than ever before. And yes, the IRA was crafted to try and make it as protectionist as possible to U.S. companies and to union shops. And that's because the current president is in favor of unions. But then during the chat, they went on and talked about how they will bust up unions. And I was thinking that's kind of not ideal for the messaging on that. So, but overall, I think no matter who comes into office, Tesla will be fine. Clearly, if the Democrats win, that means the buyer credits remain in place more likely. But I think whoever wins is likely to bring with them Senate and congressional control, maybe not absolute control, but certainly a power shift. And we know that Republicans have historically not been in favor of things other than oil. So I think that any distaste from Harris and Walz would be offset by the Congress that they have, and that any love from Trump specifically would be offset by the conservative Republicans that would come with him. So I think it's a mixed bag, and I do not see an outcome where Tesla doesn't do well. So I don't do a lot of politics. My extent of politics is that I cover policy, and from a policy perspective, both of these look okay. I did make some revisions to my long-term figures based on probabilities of outcomes, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. But I, to summarize, I was hoping there would be more chat about EVs and about EV policies, but there just wasn't.
I don't know if sorry, John. I don't know if it would have been prudent for Elon to like go in at that. I think he's playing the long game as far as that type of dialogue goes when it comes to the former president. I don't think he really wants to just hit him over the head with all kinds of rhetoric and stuff like that right now. That's my take. I mean, it just seems like he just really has a broader view than most people think. I think Elon's got a really, really broad view of this whole dynamic and what he wants to do with it.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that everyone's been saying. Sorry, there's this random person who just keeps spamming. So shout out to you for spamming the thread. But either way, yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I actually agree with everyone's sentiment. I think, Hans, some of the stuff you said resonated with me. I do think because this is no longer, what side should I be on? I think the bigger issue is obviously Elon has picked a side. He's, kind of gone full fledged on that side. And I think depending on the outcome, this could potentially be a liability after the fact. So if Harris wins, I do think that, Biden's administration already put tons of pressure on him. And if you look at the amount of cases that Elon won over the past 2 or 3 years, it's pretty insane. His legal team, they're savages as far as just the amount of court cases that they've won. So I just think, unfortunately, that if it does go the Harris route, that, you will see a lot of friction and issues, I think, for Elon and his companies over the next 4 years. And obviously it depends. That's just my opinion. I do think that, what people don't realize is because I remember growing up and, the only person that you ever heard, the richest person in the world when I was growing up was Bill Gates, and obviously still even for a long time. And so that's the person that, you think of, but you never really think of, what was their political agenda? What was their thoughts? And Bill Gates, obviously, more so probably now in the past 10, 15 years, has obviously, weighed a lot in, and probably he did before, but it just wasn't something you attached him to, was his political side per se. And again, maybe that's just my opinion, but that's what I remember of him growing up. And so for me, it's like, I do know that people forget, the side that Elon was on pretty much his whole life, at least while he was in the US. And this is his first time where I think he's starting to vote the other way, but it's for very specific reasons: being attacked by this party, being overlooked, being stiffed. Whatever words you want to look at it. And so that's why I do think that, at least the thing probably that has been said is, if it goes the Harris route, I do think it's going to get a little hairy. I'm not saying that, do I believe that's going to impact the long game of where Tesla's headed? And no, their products are just so much than what's in the market and what will come to market. So I think, at the end of the day, people are going to utilize their purchasing power with buying the best product, especially once they release this Model Y refresh. If that comes in 2025, I really do think that that's going to be a beautiful vehicle. I mean, the Model 3 Highland is just absolutely gorgeous, but I do think that there is a risk in taking this side, especially leading into it. But again, this is Elon. This is what he does. This is who he is. He's always been very vocal. If you start a fight, he's going to do his best to finish it, or he will finish it. And there's a lot of stuff, obviously, as he shared, even in the Jordan Peterson thing, where stuff happened to him and his family. And so look forward to, I mean, it's a wonky year no matter what, with this economy and being how bad it is. And so, we'll see if we get to a different political party this upcoming November. But I do think that, people forget the history of why Elon is this way. And that's probably the only bummer, that people aren't going to be able to see what's happened over the past 4 years and this political party and how they've treated him versus today. They're just going to say, oh, he's MAGA. That's just all that's going to come to their mind. They're not going to be previewed to the history like we are, where we kind of live and breathe this stuff. We've been, following Elon for years now, if not maybe some of us over a decade plus. So that's my opinion. I think, so I'm definitely,
well, I would add a quick perspective that you can't go wrong betting against Elon. I mean, look at Mark B. Spiegel. he lost not only billions of dollars, but his entire fund was dissolved because it was so badly performing because he had an irrational hatred of Elon Musk that was more valuable to him than anything in his life, including the money of everyone who believed in him. And first of all, it's a terrible way to go through life. Carrying grudges will eat you alive, but carrying grudges with money is so much worse, and it's a bit irrational. The people who don't like Elon's politics won't like Elon's politics, and you can say that they're rational or irrational, and I would argue that I can see both sides of it, but allowing your emotions to cloud your judgment to that extent is not a good idea, is just my thought.
Definitely. So Cybertruck news. It looks like we have a cooler that's literally $700. And I don't know if Joe, you're buying one of those for your truck. But
nope.
I know I'm passing, that's for sure. I would rather probably buy the sledgehammer, which I did skip and I did not purchase, but the $700 was a little steep for literally I think it looks cool, but it's a stainless steel coffin for sure. But yeah, it looks like also 2 new Cybertruck core wheels are now configurable in the US. So something, and then I think there was some other big news, I believe, in the past week. I don't think we covered it last week, but you no longer need a reservation to order a foundation series. So if you want a Cybertruck in the next, month or two, you can skip the line and literally buy a Cybertruck foundation series. So that's something that's super cool. Just realize, though, if you don't purchase one, again, this is kind of what you were dealing with before, that doesn't make, you won't speed up the line. You go back in line once they start releasing the non-foundation series. So that's just a quick call out.
And yeah, that is a reminder. If you're thinking I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait 2 months and then get my $80,000 truck, unless your reservation number is 8, it's not going to happen. You're going to be looking at, I'd say, 2 years, maybe.
Unless you're Shaq, like Hans pointed out in chat, you could just FaceTime and go ahead and get yourself another Cybertruck.
Well, you don't need a reservation. You can just do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's paying the $100.
Yeah, that was That was pretty insane.
Oh,
All
and Joe,
right.
if you were asking, I am not Shaq, because I know you said if you are, but I am not. So
Oh, okay.
wanted
Okay.
to clear that up.
All right. Everybody's aware that Brian is not Shaq.
Yeah. Good call out. All right. Brian, I'll let you take this because this is literally your post.
Yes, I have seen this one. This is great. This is fantastic news. This came out from Bloomberg. And what they're saying is, you remember in 2019 when they were saying, "Oh, it's over, it's over." Sure, we've got a couple more, maybe one or two more credits of these ZEV credits, but these quarters are ending. The credits are ending, because if these other manufacturers are going to start making their own EVs, and when they do, they won't need to buy ZEV credits anymore. But we keep seeing all these delays. We keep seeing all these companies pushing out their plans until much later. And what happens is, you can either, well, I've got this, $100 million fine I can pay, or I can buy the credits from someone for less than $100 million. Let's just do that, because I'm focused on next quarter, maybe the quarter after that, certainly not 5 years out. So, so far, Tesla has received over $10 billion in ZEV credits. And if you look at the cost of the factories, Shanghai was supposed to be 1 to 2 billion. We believe that with the addition of the Model Y and ancillary buildings, it's closer to 4. Giga Texas is 4.5, maybe 5 billion. That's 9 billion right there. That means Giga Texas and Giga Shanghai were free, with enough money left over to build most of Giga Berlin. So, guys, how many free factories would you like to have? At some point, these guys have got to look at their financials and say, maybe we should have spent the money building our own factory. But again, that's too far out. Someone in the comments replied to me saying, what you have to, no, Brian, you don't understand. This was their plan all along. Why don't they just wait until the technology is mature and jump then? And you know what? The strategy has actually worked. They have done that, and it has not killed them yet. Of course, the longer they wait to get in, the harder it is to catch up, but the more lessons they can learn. Tesla is the one driving down battery prices, along with all the manufacturers in China. Were it not for Tesla and the Chinese brands, lithium-ion batteries today would still be prohibitively expensive. So everyone benefits from the early movers, economies of scale, and R&D. This is a win-win, really. All the money that these guys have paid to Tesla has made Tesla stronger, and all the strength that Tesla's developed gets to flow back to the legacy guys. So I think it's exciting.
I think there's a positive and a negative to waiting so long. I mean, when you look at the Silverado, I mean, it's got the pass-through everybody wanted. It's got the range that everybody was begging for. So I think there's something to be said for people who wait to bring out their products. The problem that we here in the bubble have is that we think everything's happening right now, but the truth is, just like with HGTV and everything else, like these things are like a long burn for the majority of the population. And right now we're not even close to things like to that tipping point. We think we are because we're seeing all these sales happening and whatever, but 5 years from now you could be a new startup and you'll probably still be selling a lot of vehicles. It's just a slow burn in the market when it comes to automotive. It just that way. I mean, I imagine in 5 to 10 years when China comes over here, it's going to be way different ball game for a lot of people. That's when things are going to get interesting.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting times, especially if these companies keep losing money. So Brian, you sent this, so thanks for sharing this. I'll let you chime in as I give a quick overview. But this is essentially all of the pure EV makers, their free cash flow over the last 20 years, if they've been around that long. And you can clearly see two big loops, one loop up, one loop down. And, Tesla, as you saw, it's pretty crazy. By year 9, they were turning it around. About year 9, they were turning it around and starting to go the other way, which is insane. And so, but you see companies that are doing the exact opposite, which is like Rivian, who just continues to burn cash. And I think last I remember, they're at like what, 5.5-6 billion cash, and that's not a lot of runway. So, and that's after $1 billion infusement from VW. So there's still, I think, more coming, but from VW, but it's still, it's I think it's the old saying of like, prototypes are easy, but production's hard. And just it goes back to the fact that what Tesla has done in the EV space, and having a person like Elon and obviously his amazing team just working ruthlessly to make this happen and build something. That's the only reason why this product has really turned around. But yeah, I mean, I think so it'll be interesting to see, where things go, but, I'll pass it to, the panel, for any call outs on this. I can either leave this up or I can take it down.
I'd say leave it up so we can, yeah. So this, at first blush, you say, oh my gosh, this is gruesome and grim for everyone. Only Tesla has turned it around. But you see, Tesla has the longest time horizon. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. You could see, if you were to continue drawing on any of those non-Rivian lines, you could imagine it correcting around year 9 or 10 and starting to go up. That's what we're hoping to see. We want more players in the industry. Rivian is absolutely the outlier because they are so deeply negative. But yet they're still promising. They still have a very good chance of survival, in part because they do have 5-6 billion left, and in part because their consumers have a real appetite for their vehicles, and they're actually producing vehicles. A number of them on this list have huge losses without much to show for it, without a whole lot of vehicles. If you look at Lucid at negative 10 billion, they're only they sell fewer cars ever than Tesla sells in a quarter. And it's not even close. It's ridiculous. So it's probably, a couple weeks of Tesla production equals all of Lucid's since forever. And that's a huge amount of cash burn. But I would welcome other comments. Hans, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that when you look at it, this chart is pure EV maker. So, you're not including the BYDs of the world. And I think a lot of people lose sight of the fact or forget that Tesla is still the only profitable pure BEV maker in the world, including all of the Chinese competition. And, for all of the talk that we've heard about Tesla killers over the years, so many of them have come and gone. And this chart is a harsh and stark reminder of that reality of just how hard this is. And obviously, a number of these companies, we hope that they can make the transition that Tesla made eventually. And I think at least several companies will. I don't know if there are any of the companies on this list or not. And yeah, obviously Rivian, I mean, the one thing you give them is they've probably delivered more pure BEVs than most of the companies on this list, save for, I really don't know what the comparison between them and Xiaopeng might be, or Neo for that matter. But as far as, any of the others on here, they've delivered quite a few. So at least, that's the one thing they can say is while they have lost a lot of money, they have at least delivered quite a few vehicles. And so that is something to be said. But yeah, the cost controls over there are definitely concerning. And the only one that is more concerning is Lucid. So I really do hope, because Rivian's product is phenomenal, that they can turn this around. But they've got a lot of work to do because, if you look at the slope of this line, it's not getting better. It's not getting better.
Yeah, that's that's one of the harshest things, right? I mean, we all know Rivian. We all know people that have a Rivian and they like their Rivians, but holy cow, that line is depressing. Like it's a really, really harsh reminder. And you look at companies like Fisker and Workhorse, like, I mean, they weren't even given a chance. That's just a few years, and Fisker already bankrupt, and Workhorse isn't even in the detriment that Lucid and Rivian are, and they can't even sell the vehicles. It's wild that these companies that aren't even really making any vehicles, but have been in existence all these years, aren't as in dire straits as some of these companies that are actually making vehicles. But yeah, I mean, I hope the best for Rivian, Lucid as well. Those are great vehicles. It's really unfortunate to see. I mean, but you would like to think that by Tesla's lead, that these people don't need 9 years to turn it around. You know what I mean? Like, in all honesty, that should be what the takeaway is that it's the groundwork has been laid. You know what I mean? It should not take 9 years now for people to understand, especially with the supercharger network being open, people being aware, and all the talk about subsidies and governments and fundings and different things like that. You would think that there would be a lot more influx of capital into it, but here we are in a recession, right? And everything else is happening around the world. So
I would say that the excitement to fund an EV company isn't there the way it was. It's moved on to robotics, it's moved on to AI. And all of those companies have a problem that Tesla didn't have. Tesla didn't have to compete with Tesla, and that's tough. We see Lucid following exactly on the same roadmap as Tesla. Start with a very expensive sedan, move to an expensive SUV, and then move to, I mean, I guess straight to their Model Y competitor. But they're doing it all against existing products, and a lot of other companies are doing the same in the high-end sedan market. You've got your Taycan, you've got your Audi, you've got your BMWs, your Mercedes. There's a lot of good competition in that space, and there's only so many buyers. And then you've got the same thing with the SUVs. And when Lucid's going to make their midsize, I assume that they benchmarked the current Model Y. But to make it a little more premium, a little nicer on the inside, well, that's great. But we're about to get a whole new Model Y. And I say whole new, a substantially new, a 50% new Model Y, because we've seen it with the Highland. And this is, you're chasing a moving target, and it's difficult. I do wish the best for Lucid. I'm disappointed that when Corey Steuben went there, that they put a muzzle on him. I was hoping that that meant we would actually get some Lucid content. And it doesn't have to be, necessarily secret sauce that he's sharing. He could say, look, here's a feature that people overlook. Make a 10-minute video about that, Corey. But that's not what they want him there for. So unfortunately, that's not happening.
Well, just one additional point on, having to compete with Tesla. I mean, it's great if you're Lucid to make, honestly, probably the best engineered luxury pure EV sedan. If you listen to people like Jason Camisa, who's just, falls all over how incredible the vehicle is from a technology standpoint. But when you're competing against the Model S Plaid, sure, it may be better engineered, but you're talking about what, twice the cost on many of the models. And so when you're competing against something that is really, really good, and then but far out competes you on the value for money, like what you're getting for what you pay in the Tesla Model S or the Tesla Model X compared to all of these other competitors, whether it's the Taycan or the Audi, like all of these things. That's what makes it so hard to compete. Like, you can differentiate yourself a little bit, but even high-end consumers are smart, and they understand that value for money is an important purchasing factor. And that's going to sway a lot of the volume in that category.
Definitely. Joe, I'm going to kick it to you on this one.
what you're looking at is a battery powered train in Berlin. I think this is like really cool. I mean, as we know, this is like I think they're expanding the track too. So this is free for all of the employees, and I even think people who are just coming to visit, like they get to like just take this train like no cost. Yeah, I mean, I can kick it to anybody else, but I know that there's a DJ and there's some other things that, I mean, it's just really enjoyable. Everything they're doing in Berlin is like, it's like my happy place. It's like really wild that we can't do some of these things here. It's like really bizarre, but they have whatever they want.
Yeah, I can speak to this one a bit. When they open the train line, they don't own the train. At least I don't think they do. They don't operate it for sure because they just leave it to the local transit authority to handle it. It is a free train to ride because the vast majority of riders are factory workers. Tesla just pays for it, and it's cheaper to let the hop-ons hop on than it is to actually pay someone to make sure that everyone has their employee ID. They got a lot of criticism early on because this, my gosh, this is terrible. They can't, how dare you run a diesel train to an electric factory? Guys, it's taking hundreds and hundreds of cars off the road. Even if it's diesel, it's a net win. But of course, they did get the electric train. They just had to order it and wait for it to be built because these don't sit on shelves waiting for customers.
Hans, sorry. Um, yeah, it was pretty insane. At least when I went to visit Giga Berlin, I saw at the time. I mean, it wasn't at the time. It wasn't electric, but I didn't even, to be honest, I didn't even really notice, any of the things that it was being run on. Like it wasn't something you smelled really, because it did go by several times, but all the stuff that they're doing out at Giga Berlin is really amazing. Like they have that robot inside that makes coffee. It can also do beer, but when I saw it, um, it was just doing coffee. And the one caveat too about Giga Berlin specifically is the tours are being run by people who have another day job. So they, out of their own time, created this tour that they do, and it takes away obviously from their. They make it up later, but it does take away from their day job. But the great thing is it was created by people who work the factory, created this tour. And so if you go Fremont has pretty much been, they've pretty much written the script, and it's like, you get on a train and it's still a really cool experience. But you go to Giga Berlin, I mean, you walk the whole thing, from where it starts to pretty much where they're literally getting on the truck, which is a really cool experience. But I think that's the one thing that makes it a little bit more raw and exciting. But seeing this train being fully electric, and also too just how green this factory is compared to a lot of the other legacy auto in Germany is completely unmatched. I know that they've released or have made statements about how much greener their space is, and I believe it might even be completely. I don't know what the word is, but either way, I think it might be, what is it, carbon neutral now at this point, if not better or something like that. But either way, for them to continue to do this, even if it is, the local government running this train, it's cool to see that impact. It kind of reminds me of even Starbase when I was out there, and they had, all of their factory workers, just being brought in. There's this huge parking lot literally on the side of a dirt road. And then there's like, they put pavement and some of this other stuff, and they're just bringing everyone in because there's so many workers there. So obviously there's not a train going through it, but just really reminds me of the impact that really this company is having on the local government out there.
I want to jump in real quick and say I've on social media, I periodically encounter people who say Elon's companies are so terrible, nobody wants to work there, and they hate it. And I say, based on what? Because I've met hundreds of these people, and I do not share that experience. And they say, well, my friend used to work there, and now he doesn't. I go, was he fired? Was he fired? So when I went out to Starbase, I'm out there taking pictures. This guy pulls up to go to work. He's got all his safety vests and all that, and he stops and he has a chat with me for no reason. And I'm like, do you like? Oh, I love working here. I'm a welder, whatever. And I go, you must get sick of jackasses like us coming out and taking pictures. No, I love it. I love it. And so I go, you must be new here, right? Because you're spending time when you could be in there on the clock. He's like, I've been here for years. I just love it as much as you do. And that is something I've never seen with other companies. When I did my Fremont factory tour, we're on the little tram going around, and employees are like waving at us. They're excited. They're like pointing to things we missed. That's something you don't see anywhere else. I've also done the factory tour at the Ford Rouge plant. No enthusiasm there. So it's a different kind of company. They're all different. It's a different kind of philosophy that builds these companies.
That's an interesting take because I've never toured any other factories, car manufacturer factories, except for Tesla. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, I think for me, at least my experience has been, you'll meet several people that are not a fan of working at the company, but it's very few. And maybe there's, I'm not saying that they necessarily got fired. Maybe they left for some other reasons, but most of the people that go there end up or working there end up staying there a very long time because the mission or working at a company that always is moving and changing and is really disrupting the world. That's what you get with an Elon Musk company. Whether you're at X, whether you're at SpaceX or Neuralink or Tesla, you're going to be a part of a big movement that is actually going to drive change in your lifetime. Whether you're working on these crazy rocket boosters to building a robo-taxi to the robot, I mean, whatever, or to some of the first EVs, which is the Roadster and the Model S. Like most people have had a generally, an overall positive experience, at least out of the hundreds of engineers and workers that I've had there. And there's the quirks. It's all the things that come with working at a company that has long hours. I mean, that's probably the biggest con, but that's what comes with being able to turn curves like what you see here, where you literally have your CEO sleeping on the ground and working with you, an hourly worker, versus here's at the time, I mean, at the time it wasn't the case, but he was still a billionaire at that time and he's sleeping on the ground with you. And so that's the type of motivation that comes with working with Elon. He will get in the weeds on anything. And Franz even mentioned that at the X takeover. He doesn't just take what Franz says, and he'll get in the weeds with him. And I think, at least, again, I don't know what happened behind the scenes. There was rumors that, or no, actually Elon did comment on it, that, they changed the design, really right before 8.8, right? So I think it's just one of those things where that's just what you get with an Elon company, is that, he's going to be very in the weeds, right? So.
Well, we have all, anyone who's worked somewhere more than 10 years knows the feeling of saying, look, here's a little change we could make that would make things way better, and your supervisor saying, stay in your lane. The beauty of any of these companies, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, you name it, is that you are free to rise to your maximum potential. If you've got an idea that's great, it will be put into place. And that is, in its own way, very fulfilling. But it also means that you're at a company full of people who have that same power as you to move things forward. And it means you're not just putting in long hours, you're getting a lot done. And that's a big difference.
And even if your idea is not necessarily great, but it might be great, it'll be tried, and then it will be allowed to live or die on its merits. If it works, then it'll be kept. And if you have an idea and it turns out that there are some things about it that make it not the best idea after all, hey, at least it still gets tried and you get to learn and you get to feel like you got a fair shot. So it's pretty cool in that way as well.
Definitely. All right, let's pass this back to Joe.
Yeah, so superchargers, I mean, as we know, they're just better, right? But this was a JD Power and Associates survey. I mean, as you can see here, you can't even see my cursor. Superchargers ranked like way high amongst everybody else, and way at the bottom, good old Electrify America. So I thought this was very, very cool to know, because this was also on Ford's authority page. So Ford has this Ford authority page, and they talk about charging networks or whatever that they use. And since Tesla's one of them, they talk about the benefits of using the Tesla supercharger over, some of the other charging possibilities. So I thought this was very, very cool.
Well, Ford does have the best network because their network includes all of these, including Tesla. So there you go. They're the winners. They get to claim it all.
Facts. So I think one thing that people still don't understand is that the fact that Tesla still makes the most American-made car. And I think I love what Sawyer put out the other day, and I think there was even Elon chimed in along with several other executives. But he said if you ask most people to name the most American vehicle, they'd likely say F-150. However, the F-150 doesn't even rank in the top 50, which is pretty crazy. In 2024, the Model Y was the number one American-made car with 70% of its parts sourced from US and Canada. The Cybertruck is the most American-made full-size pickup truck with 65%. In comparison to the F-150, only 32%. This is the gas-powered, and then the actual Lightning is only 24%. So, I think it's still just, all of the people that just think that, people that are driving EVs are tree huggers and they aren't patriotic. I think they need to be corrected and informed on what they're saying, because at the end of the day, it's Tesla is making the most American-made car when it comes to the Model Y, and even when it comes to the pickup truck with over 60%. So I thought that this was a really good stat, but I feel like there's still a lot of the people that don't like Tesla are still of the mindset that, you're weak or whatever. You could put any type of word at it. That's probably the nicest word I could use. But just, you're lame for driving an EV, and yet they don't realize that ultimately they're supporting America or the USA when they're buying this car. They're supporting all of these amazing workers. And then by supporting these workers, for every one worker, they're supporting 5 to 10 additional suppliers and workers as well. So, yeah, I thought that, they did this tour. Tesla did this whole tour back, I think it was like months back, where they took the Model Y through New York and all of the East Coast major cities. And they had it on display at Giga Austin at the shareholder meeting, which was pretty cool. But it's just a big issue with just, mass or the masses don't know this. And so I just thought that this was a cool stat. I don't know if the panel has any thoughts on this. Otherwise, we can do next.
I think it's all. I think we're preaching to the choir, because everyone watching this knows how American-made these are. And by the way, if you want to know why the F-150 isn't super American-made, it's because the engine comes from Ontario. So it does. I mean, they have a plant there. So it's I think we're good.
They yell at us from their Hondas and from their Subarus, so yeah, we're fine.
All right, so maybe Cybertruck 12.5. Chuck, throughout this, it looks like Cybertruck was validating FSD 12.5.x with unprotected left-hand turns. I can't believe, what state is this guy in? Florida? It's literally, he found like the one case where it's like I don't know if they moved a whole engineering team out there.
It looks like it.
Literally all he has to do is just sit outside his house and just see what rolls through. And it's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. As he says there, that's 2 days without the hardware 3 vehicles being spotted. So, hopefully that rolls out to those hardware 3 people pretty soon. I know that Elon was saying that that's going to be a whole different number. Like, we're getting into the point to where these vehicles are going to be segregated by their year of productions. So those earlier vehicles, those hardware 3 vehicles, are going to have a separate. It's not even going to be 12 point. It's going to be whatever it's going to be, and then hardware 4s are going to be what they're going to be. And so that's going to be interesting to see how they're doing it. You're getting into like what Ryan McCaffrey would call like the Xbox 360 times.
Facts. All right. So I don't know. We'll see where this conversation goes. Bradford, Ferguson, shout out to Rebellion Air. They did share. I would love to get people's thoughts. It sounds like, X, or the headliner is Elon Musk's financial woes at X have Tesla bulls fearing he will liquidate for more stock. So I don't know if some of you watched it, or what are your thoughts on this? Is this even something you're thinking about, or are you kind of just like, this is just more fake news?
Bradford's watching live, by the way. He just texted me.
I wouldn't say it's fake news at all. I wouldn't say it's FUD. I think this is a very balanced and real kind of perspective. Elon himself said that he may need to sell more in the future to continue the funding of X, and we know that when you have FU money, and then you tell people that they can choose not to advertise and they can go FY, then some of them take that personally and don't choose to invest as a result of it, or not invest but advertise. It's possible. I wouldn't, a billion here, a billion there, compared to the market cap of Tesla, it doesn't concern me. And it's, his shares, his decision. I don't know. What do you think, Hans?
Yeah, I think that there's, two groups of people, and they kind of handle this differently. So one group of people is people who are trying to understand what's going on and think about possible scenarios and just explore, hey, what is the probability of this happening? What is the probability of that happening? What is the probability of this happening? Because then it helps you to have a plan and be prepared for things that can happen. And that's definitely how, Bradford and Matt operate. And they have been just an incredible asset to the community over time. And for people who don't remember, Bradford did kind of warn of Elon potentially having to sell some stock before he did the last time. And so there's some history here. And so people who are just trying to understand the probabilities and possibilities are going to appreciate their perspective here. And then there's another group of people who are very much into narrative warfare, that we need to win the story. And if you're trying to win the story, then the possibility that Elon might sell some stock is very, very inconvenient. And so anyone who's trying to win the story, and usually those are going to be people who are, winning the story is a lot of times correlated to short-term traders, because that is what drives short-term stock price, is winning the story. They're going to say, hey, this is completely offside, unfair. They're going to throw a lot of flack. And I'm just not this narrative story group of people. I'm more in Bradford's camp. And so I really appreciated the piece in their analysis. I also appreciated Larry's pushback against them. And I think that while it is possible that it's not very likely that Elon is in a different position at this point in time with respect to the amount of other private companies that he has that he can use to sell if he needs to generate some cash to be able to fund the operations of X. And so I think that because Elon is trying to get back to that, 25% control area of Tesla, that if he can liquidate other holdings that he has besides Tesla, that he will probably prioritize those first. So that doesn't mean that he will. I mean, there is a possibility that he could sell some Tesla stock, but as Brian said, it's probably, like, even if he does, the amounts that we're talking about are relatively inconsequential in the long run, and not something that I'm hugely worried about. But if it does happen, I won't be surprised, unlike some other people.
Yeah, no, I agree with that wholeheartedly. The whole win the story and everything else, and I mean, like you say, anybody who watches Bradford and Matt will understand that they are just trying to educate people with their findings, because they pay attention to things that people don't pay attention to. Like when Bradford had me go to Lathrop to check out the Megapack factory before anybody was even thinking about it. And then he came out here and camped out overnight. Me and him at the freaking Megapack factory taking videos, we were like trading off shifts. And I mean, the guy is just a workhorse for the movement and for the mission. And I mean, he gets it. So anybody who's that in the weeds, if they notice something, you should listen. Like, you know what I mean? You should really pay attention to what they say. So I think it's a good call out. And like Hans said, I seriously doubt that if he had to, it would be inconsequential to really affect the stock, because he really doesn't want to affect his holdings as much. People need to understand that Elon has more invested in Tesla than any of us. You know what I mean? Like, he has more more in it than any of us. And even though people want to complain about when the stock moves or whatever, it's affecting him way worse than it's affecting any of us. And I'm pretty sure that he, even though he doesn't really care about money per se, he cares about his agendas. I think that he would try to make sure that he got what he wanted to get without affecting like his true source of his financial empire. You know what I mean? So I think it's a good finding. It's a good acknowledgement. Tip of the cap to Bradford and Matt for even noticing that. But yeah, I'm not too worried. I think Elon is, again, just like on a whole different level. Like he just thinks on so many different planes of existence than we do, and so we're thinking one thing, and then next thing you know, something else drops, and so it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of those sentiment. I think especially the way that people watch the market, especially I think, yeah, you texted me when Bradford was coming and out there. I was like, so this person, Bradford, literally wants to sit outside for like days. And yeah, they sat there, and I remember seeing all the tweets, just live counting it. I'm like, what? It's insane. But yeah, no, it's amazing to see people that can get that a neck deep in the weeds and really just call things out, especially like they do at Rebellion Air and stuff. So I think at the end of the day, I mean, this is, I'll probably always come back to this, is like, at the end of the day, Elon can do what he wants with his money. If he sees it fit to long term, he wants to take X to a certain place, that's his prerogative. And as he's always said, he's not an investor. He just literally builds what he's making, and he's invested in what he's making. That's it. It's not like he's moving billions of dollars from one fund to the next or from one company to the next as far as like investments go. For the longest time, all of his investments in Tesla have been to really kind of help SpaceX become, or the mission to get to Mars has kind of been his baby. But now, I mean, SpaceX is at a point where they're profitable because of Starlink. And so I think at the end of the day, it's going to be really up to him on what he wants to do. Obviously, when he does make moves, depending on how much of a sell-off it is, it will impact the stock. But when you think of, thankfully, what just happened, we voted for his comp plan. Hopefully that actually gets into effect and helps the movement forward out of Delaware. That's really what matters here, because as soon as I remember, one thing that's kind of like, what's the word, tattooed in my brain is when Holmar said, "Hey, Elon, we did our work. Now it's your job to go make this the most, the biggest market cap company in the world." He's like, "Let's go," pretty much, And so I think it's just, there's going to be some short-term headwinds that happen as far as maybe how invested he is in Tesla, because of, he might have other, places where he needs to put his money. But ultimately, his goal is to really help make this become the biggest company on the planet. And he's doing it, right? So there's been a lot of headwinds this year. There will be more, depending on how the economy is. Hopefully the economy turns. But it's been a lot of headwinds so far. Joe, to you.
So what just recently happened is the Buffalo ended up renegotiating the terms of the deal that they had, and I mean it's still for a lot of money, but the amount of employees kind of changed and different things like that for what they needed to have by the time they needed to have it. And this is a good deal for what they're doing in Buffalo. And I don't know if Brian, if you had any information or what you might know about this.
So the nice thing is this is a double whammy. They wanted to say, we're putting in this big expensive data farm, and small communities love those. They say, look, hey, we're going to spend this many dollars and it's going to be great. But what they don't realize is the dollars aren't staying in the community, where they're buying chips from somewhere outside the community, building capacity, and then leaving 3 people to run it. So what Tesla said is, look, let's make the employment target statewide instead. And in order for us to agree to this, you have to allow direct sales. So we can open 10 new service centers with 50 employees each, sales and service. So this is fantastic. And if the state approves it, which it looks like they will, it means that Buffalo will continue to get its tax abatement, and that Tesla would be able to do direct sales, have an expanded service footprint. And I think it was 3,000 employees statewide or something like that. It's not very many. And it's a win-win. And especially Buffalo does not have the strongest local economy. So keeping some jobs there would be great. And yeah, this is an absolute win for the state.
Definitely.
When we hit that headline, I didn't realize it was literally 8:59. But thank you, Brian, for hitting us with that, or closing us out for the topics for the day. I think maybe the only other big thing is Grok 2 is out, so it'll be interesting to see at some point if this ends up in our Teslas and seeing how all of that is integrated. And we're still waiting, potentially, who knows, maybe Tesla will invest $5 billion into XAI. We'll see. And then the diner is coming, is getting closer and closer to being done. So I think that's exciting. But like I
like the juxtaposition of the slowest diner to ever be manufactured next to the fastest AI frontier model to ever be created.
Well,
yeah, that's building permits.
Yeah, that, as we all know, I mean, there's a reason why Elon went to Texas, because of why he built the Giga Austin, because it would have taken 2 years just to get through permitting, and he built the Giga Austin factory in 2 years. So it's a matter of California, I'll put it that way. But yeah, thank you again, Brian, Joe, and Hans, for your time this week, each and every week. We may be coming to you live next Thursday, so we're working. We're going to finalize that time. We're just making a small adjustment, but please patronize both the handles of everyone that is a host here, or their YouTube channels as well. They're tagged in the YouTube description, and their X handles are live on X. So please, patronize them for their valuable insights that they give each week, and for their time. And shout out to Joe for creating the deck as well this week. So I hope you all have a great week, and we will see you next week, probably on Thursday.